Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts, Matt and Heiner,
Better red than dead.
Ian Anderson,
Some shit.
oh, we got a little bit of a lag, but that's all right, and Jay Vincent.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Man, we always run into some issues with live, don't we? That's all right.
Gotta love it.
Every time. That's all right, though. So, do you guys ever find yourself wondering if you should take the time to set your TiVo to record a show each week, or spend the money on the streaming service, or invest hours into binging that show that everyone's talking about? Well, we're here to answer that question for you. We put TV shows on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. To check out our other episodes, if you're joining us here on Facebook or Instagram, later on, you can head to our website using the link in our bio or up above. And if you're on YouTube, the link's in the description down below. You can also listen to us wherever fine podcasts are found: Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Ghana, just to name a few, and it's always completely free. Today we're reviewing Season 2, Episode 2 of The Mandalorian, called The Passenger, and we've got some decent little talking points we'll jump into, guys. The first thing I want to jump into, though, is I know there's been a lot of questions out there. I've seen them, and Mattson brought this up too. Kind of could be good to discuss the time frame of this show altogether. Are you guys aware of when it takes place?
I mean, no idea.
I know it's post-Empire, I would imagine. But beyond that, JJ, honestly, I think I, like many listeners, as Jay mentioned as well, don't really know. So, tell us.
I will tell you. It takes place about 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So the year is 9 ABY, which stands for 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, which is the first Battle of Yavin that takes place in the first Star Wars movie and original Episode 4. So it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So that's why you'll see post-Empire things that are going on. Plus, that's where it talks about this. So it's kind of that transition period.
Well, that would make sense why those pilots said things are like, what do they say, in these trying times or something to that extent.
Yeah.
So I've been reading the Thrawn books, and the first series that came out in the 80s from Timothy Zahn is 5 years after the Empire falls. And reading those books, as you would imagine with any transition of power, especially for the magnitude of what the Empire had, it's not just going to happen once the Emperor dies. Like, hey, everything's going back to normal. Like, everyone's bowing down. Like, go Republic. There's a lot of admirals and just people that are connected to the Empire that didn't want to see their position of power fall. So I'm curious to know now, with that being said, if they're going to, it seems like Mandalorian is starting to weave some of those tendencies of more of the Star Wars universe into what we're going to see moving forward.
Definitely.
So is this like, if I can imagine it, is it like the beginning of the First Order, which is the new trilogy?
Yeah, so this would be the start, and I think that's kind of what they're leaning towards, right? So you've got this Moff Gideon, who's got the dark blade that you saw at the end of last season, that is obviously a remnant that has some semblance of power. It was quite a bit of soldiers and stormtroopers that he brought in there at the end. He had some death troopers with him, so he obviously carries some weight still and power, and I'm sure there's more factions just than that. But yes, this would be the beginnings, and it was really cool. It's just to tie it into you guys. So in the first episode of this season, the guy Cobb Vanth that Timothy Oliphant played, he was from, I mentioned earlier in the last episode, he was from a book called The Aftermath Trilogy that also takes place, and it starts almost directly after. In fact, I think the first one actually takes place before the final, or before Return of the Jedi ends. It's kind of in the midst of the original trilogy, but it also carries into that final battle. If you've watched the new trilogy of Jakku, where you find Rey, that Star Destroyer that she's going through, it's laying in the middle of Jakku. The book covers the Battle of Jakku, which is where that goes down. And so Cobb Vanth is part of that trilogy. So they're really starting to tie into, with this show, even some of those, like you said, Jay, that transition into the First Order and how everything's going on there. So it's starting to bring in a lot of the big picture.
Speaking of the dark saber, do you guys think now that this episode basically was like another side quest And I remember when we
Not
were
even
about to do,
basically, Jay. Straight up side quest.
but when we were about to do the show, we were talking about it, and the news that was coming out was like Pedro Pascal wasn't really going to be in the show because Jon Favreau said he wanted to focus on other characters. Whereas now, thinking of this guy who made Endgame, who basically made a movie where for Thanos, where the bad guy won for a year, I'm thinking that we might see some episodes without Mando, and it will just focus on Moff Gideon and the Dark Saber, and then kind of tie in towards the end, maybe.
That wouldn't bother me. I think that'd be awesome because I want to freaking see the dark saber.
I know,
Like,
right?
show me the bad guy. Anything like it's cool. We had a frog in this episode, but don't get me wrong. I want to see some of the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, so I don't think you're wrong, Jay. And I think there was actually a rumor out there. There were some difficulties on set this season. Pedro Pascal apparently like walked off set at one point. And so the rumors that I've heard, and this is all conjecture and rumor, but the rumor that I've heard is that he's the Mandalorian himself, the character's only in like half the episodes in this season. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but my understanding is with the addition of the new characters that are coming, we definitely know that there are some serious characters coming in from the other shows that have been done, the cartoons. So with those plus Moff Gideon plus all that, there's probably a good chance we're going to see a lot, and at least a couple episodes that may not even include the Mandalorian at all, which is interesting.
That's crazy because when I heard that news and I remember talking to you about it, I was like, I really hope they don't do that. Now I want them to do it. Like, please bring me the lightsaber, bring me Gus Fring. I want to see it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited to see good old Giancarlo Esposito. He's so good. So I'm waiting for his comeback. But so in this episode, let's jump right to let's talk about this opening. I love that it jumps immediately into the leave off from last episode. So we see he's still driving through with the speeder on Tatooine, and he's headed back to Mos Eisley, and he gets hammered by this group that
he gets clotheslined.
Yeah, he gets clotheslined. You can see him setting up.
By the way, have you guys seen The Counselor when they it's like a drug movie and there's a guy running drugs on a motorcycle and they seriously run a cable and they measure it to where the guy's head would be and it chops the motherfucker's head off.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't going to happen in Star Wars with the
but still, I was like,
that would have gotten me to walk off set. Be like, that's how I'm going out, like episode 2.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I was waiting for it to hit him in the chest. Just so everybody knows, Ian dropped off. He's having some internet issues, so he was way laggy. So the three of us will just finish up and continue on with this episode. But so if you're wondering what happened to Ian, that's where he went.
I thought it was a cool way to start the episode. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. It was a cool way to start it, but man, I wanted meat and potatoes, and I knew it right away. I was like, we're hitting a side quest again.
Yeah,
you know what I thought of was your intro when we did the first season in that one episode. Your intro to it was about Baby Yoda being like a sadistic motherfucker. Dude, he's a totally sadistic motherfucker. He not only was it so adorable when he ran to Mandalorian, but then when he did the jetpack, he was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, bro.
Did he go like or whatever?
Yeah, he did his little giggle thing. It was like, what the hell? Yeah, he's twisted, that little dude. I like it. Well, and it gets even worse, right? So, like, we just talk about it. The fact that here's this cute, and I don't care how much cuteness you bring to the table, which he brings a lot of cuteness to the table. The problem is he ate this woman's children. And I laughed. It's a problem
even when he eats that last one. And you're like, oh shit, they're not really safe, are they?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was terrible. Like, and you knew because you see him eyeballing him when he first sees him in Peli Motto's whatever her junkyard. So it was just like, oh my gosh.
Didn't he use the Force for a second when we first saw him? Like he drew him towards himself. I was like,
yep.
My first thought was like, maybe he knows where these frogs come from, and maybe he like lives on that planet or something. But then like he went back and I was like, nah, I think this baby's just hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
I
knew
know.
as
I
soon as
kind
you
of had
saw
a
him eyeballing him, I was like, oh, he's gonna eat some of these. It's gonna be a
yeah.
problem.
I had a question mark next to it in my notes for like the first half, and I was like, "Oh no, he's just a fucking egg eating monster, man."
Yeah.
But before that, though, I remember I mentioned seeing an ant in a bar. Before they get on this whole trip, there's a fucking ant that gives them directions, and he's a gambler. His name is like Doctor Mandible,
Dr.
which
Mandible.
I swear from from honestly Frogger from our Moxie days, that has to be a term about ants. I really think mandible is like what their limbs are called.
Yeah, it's
Oh, but
their front teeth thing.
yeah, and I was just so amused by that whole scene when she's talking, even when she brought out the frog. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is awesome.
Yep. Well, and the ant is a takeback. So Dr. Mandible was actually he's in a background scene in the original Star Wars. He's in that same damn bar. So that's the Mos Eisley bar. That's where they meet Han and Chewie for the first time. In fact, the bars, the seat area in which they're sitting playing Sabacc, the two of them, is the same booth that
That they were
Han
sitting.
shot Greedo.
Wow.
How do you
So
know it's the same booth? Because I mean, it looked just like it, but is there like a marker that you knew like this is the same damn booth?
That's where the shot is. It's like
well,
a shot through the guy, and it's
they
on the
did
chair now.
yeah, well that's so there's I'm a level of nerd that I went and looked. Like I went and compared the two scenes. And sure enough, it's exact
JJ, that is a
setup.
level of nerd right there.
Dude,
That's
I
Yeah,
that's nerd.
Yep.
I'll tell you what,
And I'm proud of it.
my nerd and my sophistication of this is getting so well that when I saw the two suns in the first shot, I was like, well, that's Tatooine. I know that much.
Absolutely. The dual suns. It's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, so to kind of build off what you guys are talking about with we go back to Pelimato, he wins, which was an epic scene when he sends the rocket launcher up, his jetpack up in the air and lets the dude just fall and you just crush and he just looks and does a little shoulder shrug like, that was great. But then he's tasked with he thinks he's failed to find more Mandalorians, but we find out that there's someone that knows where a Mandalorian covert is. So that's where we introduced to this frog species, this lady that she's trying to get to this planet Trask in order to get to her husband who's set up there to have the last of her babies, right? So she's got this container of babies and they are out in
The
space.
last of her line, the last of her bloodline.
Yeah, it's her last ability to have babies that will carry on her bloodline. So yeah, it's pretty, but they can't jump to light speed because it'll kill the eggs, it'll destroy the eggs. So now they have to, which I was like, that's convenient, but whatever.
Yeah, you think about that, you're like, okay, like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll accept it because of what they did with the episode with the X-wings. Man,
Yeah.
it blew me away. It blew me away.
Yep. So you get in, these two X-wings pop out and they're there kind of patrolling the area and they start talking to him. And again, one of them is Dave Filoni, who's doing his guest star, who's one of the producers and writers of the show. And then again handled the Rebels and Clone Wars show. Those were his shows. So he's one of them. And I don't know who the other one is. I didn't actually look it up to see who it was, but there is that cameo. And they start talking to him and they want his registration. Basically, he doesn't have it because he's pre-Empire and the Empire never required it. But now we find out that the New Republic does. So we start to see that they've kind of upped the level of policing in order to catch former Imperials. So I found that very interesting that they were tying in this whole here. The New Republic's there. It's early on in its growth. And it seemed at first that they're very Imperial-like, in my opinion, like where they even upped the law game in order to make it tougher. So what'd you guys think about that?
Man.
For me, I mean, I kind of backing up a little bit. I think Star Wars is so I'm not at the level nerd of JJ, but one thing I want to compliment Star Wars on is the sounds. I know what an X-wing sounds like. I could tell before, like even coming on screen when they fire their blasters.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew what it was, and to me
know
that's
that
a
sound.
marking of a good show because they stay true to it. And I thought that was really cool, but is it cool to see an X-wing again? Oh yeah, like it's nostalgic. You're like, oh man, like these ships. It was funny though later when they ragged on his Razor Crest, which seems to be like the Honda Civic of Star Wars, because they were like bashing a ship like, oh, it's so old. But to me, like X-wings look old to me because it's just weird how that is, but I guess so like new age tech and everything. So seeing all that, but I thought that's what I liked about this episode because it linked what I knew in previous Star Wars in the universe, and bringing it to Mandalorian and make it fresh and current. So I thought it was just nostalgic and a fun connection. And if we get more of that connection into kind of the Republic, post Empire, things like that, I think it's only going to strengthen my love for this new universe.
Yeah. I agree.
Man, I was so blown away because I've been pulled over a bunch of times, guys. And I've actually been I've been arrested for having a rosary dangling from my rear view in DC, like just stupid crap.
Wow.
Whoa.
But one time when I wasn't doing anything, I was home from college. My brother, was Christmas Eve, man. And my brother is just he's ran from the cops multiple times. This was the first start. I was in the car. And honestly, we had a baby Yoda. My nephew, Dakota, who was like 1 year old at the time, is still in the baby seat. We're driving down Frederick and like he speeds past the state trooper and the trooper gets on us and he has no license and he just knows that. I don't know why he's driving. Honestly, it's costing me money because he does it under my name sometimes. But dude, we're on one lane highway, just like they showed in the episode. And when they switched channels and the guy was like, switch to channel 9. Like that's where you're at, you know. When you're pulled over, you're like, "What the fuck? Why are they talking to each other and not talking to me?" And then that's when you really got to decide. One time, I almost put my foot to the lever because I knew my license was suspended, but I didn't have the balls to do it. My brother did it, and just like in the show, he's like weaving through traffic, like he's weaving through clouds, and then cuts on a side road the same way. He kind of like spins his thing around and drops. And then he got away, but then like 2 months later, because he was on their radar from that, and luckily I got away. He did it again and got away. But when he came home, they had the whole area blocked off just to catch him. But they did it perfectly, man. They did it just like in real life. Like anytime I've been pulled over and like the second cop says something to the first cop, I'm like, fuck, I'm fucked. This sucks.
Jay, great story. Linking it to that, because how the cops found your brother and roped everything up. How did the X-wings find Mando later on? I know they have a bevy of sensors and things like that, but how would they have found him? Because he was underneath the sheet of ice. I'm sure they're probably still patrolling looking for him, but how would they have found him, JJ?
So my guess is, and this is all speculation, it's the only thing that makes sense to me though, is I'm sure they have sensors running and you have that many life forms running around at one time, and all of a sudden it just comes out of nowhere, which we'll talk about. But that part I'm sure triggered something, and then they're probably scaling it, and it's an ice planet, right? So it's not like there's a lot that they're going to be looking for. He's going to be in a pretty specific vicinity, or they'd be able to see a ship flying, things like that. So you look down, you see a giant hole or a weird, and plus all the life forms that I'm sure their scanners and their droids, their R2 units or whatever it was, they're on the back of their X-wings would pick up. So that would be my guess as to how they found him. But speaking of that, it was a cool chase scene, and I love when he takes the Razor Crest full into like that 180 mode and just kind of sits it down, lets it slide into this little cave. I was like, yeah, he got away. Oh, shit. And he falls into the hole. I was like, that's not good. And then the whole ship's just tore up. So,
it definitely is a Civic of the spaceships, man. That thing just
dude, and it still flies. That thing, like, I mean, we season 1 stripped for parts, put it back together, and then he's trying to like do some soldering thing where I'm like, bro, that's not gonna work. Your shit is effed, and it still somehow flies. And then this whole bevy of like space alien like spiders just come in, and this thing still flies. I'm really impressed. Like, if you need a Star Wars vehicle, probably should get one of those.
Yeah, I'm looking for a Razor Crest.
Yeah, one of my notes was like, damn, fixing spaceships must be easy, because also they were freezing too. So he got it done in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. Well, and I love the scene too where she calls him out, so that she fixes the robot from episode 6 in the first season, the droid, and Zero. And so she's talking to him through this droid and like calls his ass out. Like, look, dude, you're full of shit, man. You said you were going to get me to this planet and your code as a Mandalorian. I've heard these rumors. Apparently the stories are not true because you guys, once given your word, you have to fulfill that. So the stories must be bullshit. And you can just see him be like, damn it, and get up. And I love the visual of his suit, like the Beskar steel freezing. Like as it frost over, and you can see the progression of the ice on his armor. I loved how they used that to show how long he's been out trying to fix the shit for a while before the child comes running out like, she's gone, dude.
And she found like a freaking jacuzzi.
Man.
And then they got into basically, I mean, you guys have seen a lot of movies. It made me think of Alien.
Yeah.
The way maybe you guys did, or maybe JJ did because he's super observant. I didn't notice those eggs, obviously, until Baby Yoda made us clearly notice those eggs. You're like, oh, okay, this baby's just hungry all the time and willing to eat whatever it is. And then all of a sudden they start hatching. I was like, well, it made me think of Alien. I was like, oh my gosh. And then they combined it with like Harry Potter, with the Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets with the spiders and everything. Oof.
Yeah.
Although the spiders definitely, they were J.J. Abrams type spiders when they came in. It was like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
They were scary. Giant frost spiders with fucking weird ass teeth.
Yeah.
And they spit webs out from their freaking mouth, not from their backside.
Yeah. So cool story about the spiders. There's two references to them previously. So the first reference, and I'll show you guys a picture. I'll pull it up so everybody can see it.
For JJ, because
I know, right?
did not know this.
I just thought I honestly thought J.J. Abrams came in and was like, "There's some fucking spiders in there, bro."
No, man. So these spiders, and specifically these spiders, came from concept art from Empire Strikes Back. So the original idea for these spiders that are in this episode were actually to be on Dagobah. When Luke lands on Dagobah to see Yoda, the idea was for him to have to fight one of these. So here's this. I'll pull up this image. Here's the actual spider image. So you can see it's almost an exact replica to the spitting out of the eggs. Mm-hmm. And you can see all the little eggs on the ground there. So a small image. I wish I had a bigger one, but that is the concept art for Empire Strikes Back. Now, the other reference to those spiders is Dave Filoni used them in Rebels, a version of them. They're called Krykna in Rebels, the TV show. They're a little different in that they're on a different planet. It's not an ice planet. It's a planet where one of the original Rebel bases are set up, and they actually have to use a sound to get rid of these spiders. So in Rebels, the spiders are almost impervious to blaster fire, which is another difference between those and these ones. The full-size ones are impervious to blaster fire on their body. They have to shoot them in the eye to actually kill them, but then they use sound, this big sound barrier that they set up around their base that keeps the spiders away. So they don't actually kill too many of them except when they attack certain members of the Rebels crew. So Krykna is what they're called in there, but they have beaks in the TV show. They kind of toned them down. They don't have those wicked teeth and the round, but you can see this one's more like the one in that image is more like that. So it's kind of a cool reference to how they're bringing back things from the past and using those references from other things that they've done throughout the universe. But the spiders were creepy as hell.
Star Wars is really good at creating adorable and creepy creatures.
Yeah.
Also really great at Easter eggs, because to take something from concept art and be able to put it functioning into a story as big as The Mandalorian is like such a deep cut. It's one of the things that if I was a director, I would wish I could do. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So a couple other things, they finally get out, and this is the part that I really loved, and it kind of saved the episode, because I'm kind of like you, Matt. I was feeling a little frustrated because I'm like, I love everything about this episode. If it was like just if I wasn't expecting, if it wasn't the second episode, and I want to dive into the story, like I know last season episode 6 was completely pulled out of the actual story. It was random. They're in the prison, so it was weird. But I was okay with it because there was so much story before that, right? Mm-hmm. This one, it's like, especially this episode, so early to where there's very little tie-in to the story that we're waiting for. Trying to find Mandalorians, to get this kid back to the Jedi, or at least his own species if they can find him. So I was a little frustrated, but what really saved it for me was the end. I love the tie-in to the New Republic, but at the end when the X-Wings find him, they save the ship by killing all the spiders. He comes out and they reference last season, episode 6. You risked your life to save the guy that was on the prison ship. There's a warrant for your arrest because you were there and you helped bring those, that prisoner escape, but you also caught
Spaceball
3.
helmet guy.
Yeah, Spaceball helmet guy.
Mm.
So you tried to save him. You risked your life to try to save him, and you gave us 3 criminals for the price of 1, basically. But so I like that. This is where the difference you see up front, that the New Republic's becoming almost imperial, right? They up the laws. They're checking things. They go into their X-foil position, their battle positions before they even try to reason with this guy. But then at the end, the difference between them and the Empire, right? The Empire wouldn't have given a shit. The old Empire would have destroyed him, killed him, taken the child, whatever they wanted. Whereas the New Republic made a choice at that moment, right? The 2 of them said, we're going to let you go. You got to get your own self out of this damn hole that you've dug. But we're not going to take you in. We're not going to arrest you because we're balancing the sheet, right? We're balancing your account. And we've realized that you did good things, you did bad things, and we'll just let it be. You've done more good than harm. So I really liked that tie-in, and how not only did they tie it to the original first season's episodes and tie that whole story together, and how it impacts the whole Star Wars universe, but they've tied it into the Star Wars universe. So I do like that. But I am waiting for more direct content for these 2 characters.
Yeah, I respect everything you said there, JJ, and I like the tie-in at the end. But man, episode 3, for the average or some special people that want just a continuation of the story, they got to give us something. Like they just have to.
Yeah, I
really
was expecting like something to drop after the credits almost. But to get back to what you're saying about the X-Wing fighters, I really, really appreciated that, because honestly, it now thinking about it, it's almost a great episode on how policing should go, because the beginning is not what you want, right? But I've also done really stupid stuff. One time I was going like 100 miles an hour and got pulled over, and just reasoning with the guy about why I was doing it, he was like, all right, just slow down, man, and let me go. And so I've had those moments too, and exactly like that, where he's like, well, can you help me? And they're like, nah, man, get the fuck out of
here. Yeah, I liked that part. I liked the tie-ins, but overall, it was a fun episode because it was tense and it was creepy, and there was some really cute moments and some really creepy moments. But as a whole, as much as I enjoyed it, I was disappointed as well, because I was waiting for waiting for that meat, like you say, Mattson. So I get that.
It's hard not to be disappointed in that regard, because we're watching this for the continuation of something they set up at the end of season 1. And for me, season 1, I liked it, but I liked the ending episodes, especially 7 and 8, because they hit home a narrative I was excited for in season 2. And that's where my disappointment comes in, because there's so much to continue from that. But we've paused twice in a row with these episodes where it's been visually appealing, well acted, really interesting characters and worlds. But what's Moff Gideon doing? Like, show me anything, any of that stuff, or the shock trooper, who I forget her name. I want to see it. And that's where my frustration comes in. I feel like most people are probably in the same boat. And there's got to be a reason why they've done it this way. But I still think they could have given us some tidbits to say, hey, we got to start here, but here's something, a flash in the Moff Gideon or a shock trooper, whatever it is. And that's what I'm missing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you guys remember from Endgame, when the beginning of the last Endgame, where Hawkeye's like, all right, you see where we're going? Now we got to get there. Apparently that was like the motto for Marvel, and they knew where they were going. And it seems like this one, they don't. Like, honestly, there's so many strings to pull on, because even with him having Boba Fett's armor, I thought that would come into play.
Yeah.
Or like, there's just so many strings to pull on that they're not. They're just keeping us at bay with just these side missions, and like, they gotta give us something. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I hope so. We did find out today, just as a final note before we end this, they announced today the director of episode 4, which is exciting. It's Carl Weathers. It's actually
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Sure.
he's directing episode 4, so he has directed. I'm excited to see how that plays out. So I'm hoping at bare minimum episode 4 we get, you know, Grief Karga back, and we get Cardoon, and so I'm hoping that
I'm
bare
sure he
minimum.
probably would direct himself. Honestly, that would make
Yeah,
sense.
that made sense to
Hey,
me.
that
so.
was a good scene. Great job, you.
Yeah, exactly. Pat the back.
Yeah.
Are
Still.
there only 8 episodes this season again, JJ?
Yep, still
Yeah,
only 8 episodes.
they've got it. They got 6 left, and they got a lot to tell.
Yes, they do. So, all right. Well,
Probably will though. It'll probably end up being amazing.
yeah,
I'm sure it'll start slow and strong. I mean, if it doesn't, then I'm gonna be really, really sad. But probably will do that. You're right.
Yeah. I think there's just too much that we know that's going to happen with the new characters for it to continue to be this. I think maybe this is just like the calm before the storm. Get everybody back into the series and remembering why we loved it for the visuals and the acting, and the story's pretty fun, even when it's not about the story at large. And then when it takes off, it's going to go nuts, I think. So I really hope anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, that's our verdict for season 2, episode 2 of The Mandalorian, The Passenger. If you guys, again, if you missed us, you're just joining us now, you can catch us on the replay, or you can go to YouTube and check us out. You can also listen to this on this coming Tuesday, on either our website or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have the audio version there for you. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Any final thoughts before we go, guys?
Honestly, I wanted to try to maybe plug something.
Yeah,
you guys
please
got
do.
so interested now in podcasting that I've been trying to think of just different things that I could do. One idea that I do have that kind of ties into what we were talking about today is I brought up some life stories, and that's called war stories, like in prison or wherever. And there's a Tupac song called Trading War Stories. And I've talked to certain people, like it doesn't even have to be criminal, like just your best drunk story. I want to find out those stories. You know what I mean? I want to interview people and have them tell them. So honestly, maybe look out for that this month. I'm trying to maybe launch with that.
Okay. Well, yeah, dude. Let's talk offline more about that, because I think everybody first watch for that, because it sounds like that's a great idea. I think that'd be fun.
We got to bundle you into our family.
I was going to say, let's get you under the What's Our Verdict Media hat, man. We've got that set up, so I think we can, get you in and continue helping use our platform to promote you, and then we just kind of continue to do that, because I think it's a fantastic idea. So
hey, I'm game.
Yeah, so let's talk offline, and everybody watching and listening, check that out and look for that in the future. I think it's fun. So Mattson, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
Yeah, real quick, you guys can find us at whatsourverdict.com. Check out our Instagram and Facebook pages. We've got What's Our Verdict TV, where you'll find Mandalorian and some other shows, like The Boys as well. And then What's Our Verdict Movies, where we're going to be continuously dropping new releases and movies of old, especially with COVID kind of putting a damper on in theaters. God. But come check us out. We're excited to have you listen with us and get excited for Jay's new show as well.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Whoa!